l'accord de Paris pour le climat est accepté.
The Paris Agreement is a shift from what I call a regulatory regime to a catalytic regime. A regulatory regime is a regime that solves the climate change problem by getting everyone to negotiate a common agreement about how to solve the problem. And so this is catalytic because it solves the collective action problem not by getting everyone to agree in the first instance. It's very hard to get everyone to agree in the first instance, but rather by letting people put forward what they can do and to push them to go forward over time.
Strengthening non-state climate action in the Global South is a 3-year project that aims to develop a rigorous social scientific evidence base to support effective climate action by cities, regional governments, counties in Kenya, and businesses in developing countries.
So we have so many policies, yet we have little attention on what is actually happening on the ground and who is doing sort of that kind of work. So for us, we're shifting the attention to the implementation because we do have the policies already. What we don't have much is an understanding of what is happening, who's driving the process, and the more important question of is it effective.
In parallel to national governments, cities, companies, civil society groups, and other sub and non-state actors are increasingly strategizing to address climate change but still face barriers.
What we see written in the pledges issued by the states under the Paris Agreement, the national determined contributions, it would be very difficult to achieve if states are left alone in this battle against global warming, against the negative effects of climate change. Civil society, businesses, local governments could play a key role because they are closer to the people. They can bridge the gap between national policies, national pledges and communities. And actually it's exactly at the community level where most of actions are already happening.
A number of ideas that researchers have are important and they could really help in terms of changing the way things are done and engaging the non-state action. But there needs to be an enabling policy framework that supports the process.
The limited understanding of the impact and effectiveness of such initiatives and those across national borders, especially in the Global South, remains a gap.
Since we started this project, it's been quite an eye-opening experience. I've learned a lot, and there's a lot of climate action happening in the country, and very specifically from the data collection from the actors that we've been looking at, specifically companies and the sub-national government, which are the counties. They're actually quite active. There's a lot happening, but undocumented, that people don't know about.
The Climate South project aims to map, explain, and narrow this gap. It aims to understand the contextual factors that shape the outcome of TCG on the ground, to understand how sub and non-state actors in developing countries can best contribute to the global challenge of managing climate change. Kenya and India are the national case studies.
We have many platforms that are capturing actions by cities, by states, and by the private sector, especially in the global north. But we have the platforms don't capture much of the information in the global south, which we are calling the visibility gap. Not because there's nothing happening in the global south, but because the action that is sort of going on there is not being captured by those platforms. That is the main motivation for developing the ANSA, that is African Non-State Climate Action Platform, and its key objectives is to first map the different actors that are working on climate change issues in the region, in the African region, starting with Kenya and then expanding it to the East African region and hopefully the continental region. And second, trying to understand what types of actions they're doing. And third, and most important, to sort of create that the visibility of that action so that it can catalyze action from other actors who are already working on the topic or who are interested in working on climate change issues.
The project is led by the Africa Center for Technology Studies, ACT Kenya, the Blavatnik School of Government at Oxford University in UK, the German Development Institute in Germany, the Energy and Resource Institute in India, with financial support from the Volkswagen Foundation, the Wellcome Trust, and the Riksbankens Jubileumsfond.
at the moment, when we talk about climate action by non-state actors, often we think about reducing emissions, but it is very much about adaptation, adapting to the impacts of climate change as well. I think this is especially a priority in Africa, where we have to make sure that people build up the resilience to improve their livelihoods, to continue clean and quality growth, and to create quality jobs. And you cannot achieve a low carbon transition without that.
In Kenya, the project focuses on the 47 county government as the subnational actors and 65 companies listed in the Nairobi Security Exchange and 65 SMEs as the non-state actors. Domestic and transitional climate initiatives in Kenya will also be addressed.
About going beyond government as a key player in sustainable development to moving towards engaging private sector, civil society actors, and having all these accountability and all sort of stuff in the process. And these links to the point 3 on multi-level engagements.
What has been lacking in most of the government institutions, not limited to Kenya, because the approach is top-down, whereas the actual should be the bottom-up to inform our policy and decision-making. And because we realized our people do know what the problem is in terms of how agriculture has changed, how rain patterns have changed, our health presentations and illnesses have changed, then we plowed resources in respect of programs that are affected by climate. And therefore, we are trying to solve them within that aspect.
The Nairobi Workshop on Strengthening Non, Sub and Transitional Climate Governance in Kenya, held on 16th and 17th of October 2018, brought together state and non-state actors to deliberate on this theme. Key insights that emerged noted that there is much happening around climate action in Kenya that is yet to be documented, and its effectiveness is not well understood. An online platform to capture such action, the African Non-State Climate Action, was launched to capture such action starting in Kenya, and this will spread to the African continent.
Leveraging on what we have, which is us, our skills, our talents, our ongoing initiative, is actually what needs to be done. But so that when money is coming at any time, it can leverage on what is already ongoing.
A climate action database will be developed in the 47 counties in Kenya, and the selected companies and SMEs listed in the Nairobi Security Exchange recognized for being at the forefront in terms of the general performance and climate action. This database will be a key national and global instrument for strengthening the role of sub and non-state actors in climate change mitigation and adaptation in Kenya.
Climate change action does not end with the development of policies. Rather, policies are the catalyst that sort of drives much of that action. So I think when the policymakers are much aware of what is going on, then they'll craft policies and link policies to support such kind of action, and not necessarily think that the action will follow the policies, but the policies should also support the ongoing action.
Overall, the project will contribute to understanding of how non- and sub-state actors and transitional initiatives contribute to the much-needed climate action.
It's about time that the civil society takes the route that it took when it agitated for the change of the Constitution of Kenya to execute and implementation adaptation to climate change strategies at the lower level, but not at the national level.
About 75 to 80% of our population are under 35. There hasn't been a very consistent way of bringing that energy of young people on board consistently, so that we're able to pass on our skill sets, our experiences, like you're doing a race. You're passing the baton, you're doing a relay, you're passing the baton. We need to be able to do that naturally.
In memory of the late Miss Suzy Wandera, who was committed to fostering climate action in Kenya and beyond, and an active participant of the Project Workshop.